This is Part 3, Episode 128. A droplet paused in front of Hui Hao. He tried to control himself with his thoughts, and he realized to his surprise that he actually had a body, and he was raising his hand to gently touch this droplet. The water droplet stopped on the tip of his finger, and the moist feeling soaked into his finger. Perhaps it was because this world was too spacious and quiet, but Hui Hao felt very real when his finger touched the water droplet. Water, when there was water, there was life. Suddenly, the droplets around him changed, and the temperature in the air plummeted. The droplets gradually became ice. Ice and snow all come from water, no matter what state they are in. Water becomes ice due to low temperatures. Ice is water in solid form, it's water that is hard, and water that is tough. Tiny ice grains splattered on Hui Hao's body. He could feel waves of piercing pain course over his body, and he tried to block them subconsciously, but realized that he could no longer control his body. He could only let those ice crystals assault him. It's so painful. Ice is the toughness of water? Large masses of ice crystals stuck to his body as they billowed toward him. However, Hui Hao could only feel cool and refreshed instead of cold. The art of controlling ice lies in controlling temperature. Once you have grasped the secret of temperature and the characteristics of water, you will have made some headway into the art of controlling ice. Today, I will let you feel the first level of controlling ice, temperature changes. The ice spheres that were pressed against Hui Hao's body suddenly changed, and they all melted. The cool and refreshing feeling instantaneously became one of coldness and chill that pierced his bones, and Hui Hao couldn't help but shiver from the cold. Water solidifying into ice will release large amounts of heat, while ice melting into water requires large amounts of heat. Therefore, you won't feel cold so quickly when ice is pressed against you, but the ice will suck the heat from your body when it melts, and then the cold will come. The Snow Empress words resonated in Hui Hao's mind. He suddenly realized that he had never really understood ice. In spite of his possession of ultimate ice, he had overlooked many things about the very origins of ice. Coldness wasn't just about controlling temperature, more importantly, it represented an understanding of ice itself. The whiteness around him dissipated amidst the silence, and Hui Hao returned to the manifold mysterious ice cavern. However, he had entered a state of epiphany in this moment. The Snow Empress didn't teach him much, but she spoke of foundations and roots. The Ice Empress looked at the Snow Empress with a faint smile on her face. I never expected you to become a teacher one day. The Snow Empress smiled faintly and said, have I not been a teacher to you before? The Ice Empress took a few steps forward and grabbed one of the Snow Empress' hands. She leaned gently against her and said, Snow, I have missed you so much. It's great that you're back. The Snow Empress raised her hand and stroked the Ice Empress' face gently. You silly girl, you are lucky and happy whether or not I am here. At least, you are much more blessed than I am. The Ice Empress was momentarily stunned as she stood up straight. Why do you say that? The Snow Empress glanced at the Sky Dream Ice Worm, who was still absorbing the ice essence effortfully, and said, because you have him. The Ice Empress' expression changed as she lowered her head and said, you mind his presence? The Snow Empress' eyes changed slightly, and her expression suddenly became cold as she said plainly, yes, I do mind his presence. Go kill him for me. Ah? The Ice Empress exclaimed in shock. She released the Snow Empress' hand as she stumbled backward, and she stared at the Snow Empress with a look of disbelief. Why? Why do you want to kill him? He will not be a threat to you. It's true, you're the one I like. The Snow Empress answered plainly, since I'm the one you like, and he keeps sticking with you, then what use is there to keep him around? Are you still the Ice Empress that was full of a desire to kill back then? Kill him. The Ice Empress was momentarily stunned. Her frame was trembling a little, and she snapped her head around and stared at the Sky Dream Ice Worm, who was still working hard at absorbing the ice essence. Her eyes sparkled incessantly. She knew that the Sky Dream Ice Worm could definitely hear what the Snow Empress was saying even though he was absorbing the ice essence. However, he didn't have any reaction at all. Does he not know how to speak for his own life? Why is not talking? The Snow Empress said plainly, he's useless. He's an ice worm, and he's only managed to accumulate some strength by relying on his long life because he absorbed the manifold mysterious ice essence. However, his strength was absorbed by the beast god and the great star doe forest's savage beasts. He fused with Hu Hao afterwards, and not too long ago, he fused all of his spiritual origin with him. Right now, he is completely useless. Killing him will not affect us, and neither will it affect Hu Hao. We can be together without him coming between us. What are you waiting for, Ice? Do it. The Ice Empress shivered vigorously as watery mist appeared in her beautiful eyes. The Ice Empress was very conflicted as she stood there. The Sky Dream Ice Worm, who was deeply in love with her, was standing behind her, while the Snow Empress, who she had always been in love with, was standing in front of her. Do I really have to choose between them? The Ice Empress was a soul beast, but she had long possessed intelligence that wasn't inferior to that of humans. The rise of intelligence would undoubtedly enrich feelings and emotions. How could she not feel how good the Sky Dream Ice Worm was to her? That was especially so when danger was knocking on her doorstep over several episodes, and the Sky Dream Ice Worm had defended her with his life every single time. How could she not feel anything for him, when he would give everything for her? She had been spending every single day with the Sky Dream Ice Worm ever since she went into Hu Hao. Top-tier soul beasts also had feelings, and at this moment, the Snow Empress was asking her to kill him. How could she not be conflicted? Snow, have you not said before that he's been very good to me, and that I should? The Ice Empress spoke with a trembling voice. The Snow Empress said plainly, that was before. I couldn't give you a sense of security back then, and I couldn't be with you. I was willing to have someone around to protect you. But it's different now, and I have returned. There is nobody else in this world better suited to protect you than me. His existence will only be a distraction for us when we are together. I don't wish to see that. Why aren't you making a move? Snow. The Ice Empress said agonizingly. The Snow Empress said coldly, that means you can't bear to move against him. That's fine. If you don't want to, then I'll do it. The Snow Empress floated forward as she spoke, and arrived in front of the Ice Empress in an instant. The Ice Empress hadn't even reacted when the Snow Empress' left hand pressed gently on her shoulder. Snowflakes condensed one after another, and swiftly wrapped around the Ice Empress' body. The snowflakes fixed her to the spot and immobilized her. Even though they were all energy forms that originated from their consciousnesses, the Snow Empress' strength was superior to the Ice Empress. Furthermore, the Ice Empress was caught off guard. The Ice Empress was fixed in place by the Snow Empress, and her body was swiftly half-turned. She watched in shock as the Snow Empress brushed past her, and her palm that was clear and dark blue pressed against the back of the Sky Dream Ice Worm's heart. No, the Ice Empress screamed. Her voice was filled with fear and agony as intense green light erupted from her body while she struggled to free herself from the Snow Empress' shackles. The Ice Empress was far too familiar with the Snow Empress' palm, Snowless Glacier, the Snow Empress' strongest attack. Even she probably wouldn't survive if this attack was used against her, let alone the Sky Dream Ice Worm. The Ice Empress felt as if her heart had just skipped a beat, and an unspeakable fear filled her heart. He's dead, Snow has killed him. Snow has killed him. The Ice Empress' eyes gradually turned red as she screamed hysterically. The ice auras that were coming from her body climbed rapidly as green light erupted, and the Snow Empress snowflakes that were holding her down were melting at an incredible speed. The Sky Dream Ice Worm stood there motionless. There was a dark blue layer over his body. The Ice Empress was only far too familiar with that dark blue color that was filled with the stench of death. Snowless Glacier took away all life, and even an individual as powerful as the Beast God would probably be severely injured if the Snow Empress had struck him when she was at her full strength. There was only one method to fight against Snowless Glacier, and that was to not let the Snow Empress come close. But how easy was it not to let the Snow Empress come close? The Sky Dream Ice Worm was also defenseless, and he was struck just like that. His vitality seemed to vanish in but an instant. Snowless Glacier was something that could freeze even spirits. Bam! Snowflakes scattered in all directions. The Ice Empress finally broke through her shackles as she pounced hysterically towards the Sky Dream Ice Worm. The Snow Empress blocked her with a flash. Countless snowflakes billowed in all directions as they became a barrier that barricaded the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress screamed as she pressed her hands forward. The Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's shadow glimmered behind her as intense green light transformed into an enormous pillar that went straight for the Snow Empress. "You dare to attack me, Ice?" The Snow Empress shouted angrily. "Why? Why did you have to kill him? He would never be a threat to you. Why did you kill him? Why?" The Ice Empress cried and howled sorrowfully. Her hands blasted with the light of ultimate ice, which hammered continuously against the Snow Empress. She seemed to have gone insane in this moment, and her emotions were a little out of control. The Snow Empress used but one hand as she defended herself against the Ice Empress' crazy assault. However, she didn't answer her question. Why? He was never a threat to anyone, and he had only lived a little longer than everyone else. But everyone wants to target him, to harm him. What wrong has he ever committed? Why, Snow, why did you have to hurt him? Tears dripped from the Ice Empress' eyes like waterfalls, and they swiftly transformed into ice crystals. Those ice crystals even contained her soul power as they were tinged with green colors. "You're in love with him, Ice?" The Snow Empress pushed out with her hand and pushed the Ice Empress back. The Ice Empress was momentarily stunned as she stopped attacking, and she just allowed her body to be pushed a few meters out. There was a dazed look on her face, while her gaze was filled with sadness amidst the confusion. "Yes. Perhaps I've really fallen for him. Snow, you're wrong. You shouldn't have killed him. By killing him, I'll never be together with you anymore. Perhaps I've not fallen in love with him, but I'll never be able to get together with you because he died under your hands. Otherwise, how can I live up to the feelings he has for me? Although he wasn't strong, and was even my enemy in the past, he's been really very good to me. I've always felt a sense of hope with him around. However, you've destroyed my hope. Snow, why did you have to do that? Why do you have to make me stand on different ground from you? He's dead, which means that my heart will never belong to you anymore. Do you know? You were wrong. You were wrong to kill him. By killing him, you've destroyed the relationship between us." The Snow Empress sighed and said, "Are you really not in love with him? Because of him, you're even willing to give up on our hundreds of thousands of years together. I wasn't wrong. I was right. Perhaps even you don't know that you've fallen in love with him. It's just that you aren't willing to admit it. You're wrong. You're wrong." The Ice Empress was shouting maniacally. The Snow Empress smiled. Her smile was very beautiful. She was normally very indifferent and cold, and often appeared very unapproachable. However, she was extremely captivating when she smiled. Her smile even gave off a sense of warmth. "I'm not wrong, Ice. Silly girl, I'm only helping you see yourself more clearly." As she spoke, the Snow Empress stood to one side. Behind her, the deep blue from the Skydream Iceworm slowly faded away, and he also slowly turned around, revealing a teary face. "Ice, Ice, Ice, Ice," the Skydream Iceworm's voice was trembling. He couldn't even call her name properly, and his body was shuddering non-stop. His eyes were already filled with emotional undulations. The Ice Empress was stunned as she saw the tears on his face. "He's not dead. He's actually not dead. He's alive. He's still alive." "Ah!" The Ice Empress screamed and instantly turned into a flowing streak of jade green light. She crashed straight into the Skydream Iceworm's arms and hugged him tightly. However, she was sobbing furiously. The two of them hugged each other as they cried. The feelings that they had always been hiding for each other were finally revealed. The Snow Empress was drifting not far from them. There was a warm smile on her face as she muttered to herself, "I told you I was right. Thank you, Snow Empress." Hui Yuhao's voice sounded. He had already awoken from his meditation. He saw everything that had happened. In fact, he already knew what the Snow Empress was intending to do when she hit the Skydream Iceworm earlier. As the Snow Empress was closely connected to him and was even his spirit, he knew that she didn't unleash her snowless glacier. How would it be so destructive if that was the case? The Snow Empress drifted beside Hui Yuhao and said, "I've already regained my memory. If I didn't do this, Ice would still be conflicted. She wouldn't be able to know her true feelings." Hui Yuhao looked at the Snow Empress and softly said, "Have you ever liked the Ice Empress? You too noble." The Snow Empress revealed a subtle bitter smile on her face, and her thoughts rang out in Hui Yuhao's mind, "I'm not noble. I've always only had sisterly love for Ice." This? Hui Yuhao suddenly understood, and his expression turned slightly weird as he looked at the Snow Empress. However, there was more of a warm smile on his face. Seeing that the Sky Dream Ice Worm had finally won the heart of the woman he loved, he was delighted. This was perfect. The Sky Dream Ice Worm was the first to stop crying, but he was still hugging the Ice Empress tightly. The Ice Empress' cries slowly stopped too, but she was unwilling to lift her head. She buried her head in the Sky Dream Ice Worm's embrace. The Sky Dream Ice Worm lifted his head to look at Hui Yuhao. Seeing that he was amused, he immediately turned red, and nodded gratefully at the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress smiled and didn't say anything. "Ice, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'll protect you in the future. Did you know? Today is the happiest day of my life. It's true. I'm really happy. I'm the most blissful ice worm in the world. I must be." The Ice Empress snorted lightly and smacked his shoulder. Suddenly, she forced herself from his embrace and turned into a streak of jade-green light before disappearing into Hui Yuhao's body. She was truly embarrassed right now. The Sky Dream Ice Worm chortled as he watched the Ice Empress disappear. He rubbed the tears off his face, and there was only a coquettish look left. "Continue absorbing." As he spoke, he posed coquettishly. He placed one hand on his waist and grabbed the second manifold mysterious ice essence with his other hand, continuing his earlier absorption. Time passed very quickly. After the Star Anise mysterious ice grass completely absorbed its sixth pillar of manifold mysterious ice essence, the Sky Dream Ice Worm also completed the absorption of his third pillar. Although it was only his third one, it was still sufficient to strengthen the foundations of his spiritual origins. It was just that most parts of his body were spiritual type, which was why he was unable to seal some ice essence for Hui Yuhao. The Star Anise mysterious ice grass was much stronger in this aspect. It had absorbed 4 for itself, and sealed another 2 for Hui Yuhao. It was only inferior to the Ice Empress. At this moment, there were only 6 pillars of ice essence left. The temperature in this cavern had also started to rise. "Yuhao, do you sense it? Although there's much less ice essence here, the temperature isn't rising quickly. Why is this?" The Snow Empress asked Hui Yuhao after allowing both the Sky Dream Ice Worm and the mysterious ice grass to return to Hui Yuhao's body. Hui Yuhao replied, "It's because the temperature here is too low. A lot of thermal energy is needed to make the temperature rise. However, there is very little thermal energy in this cold spring. Even if we take all the ice essence away, the temperature here will still take some time before it starts to rise." The Snow Empress nodded and said, "That's right. All right, you can absorb the last 6 pillars. You should be able to bear this amount of ice essence, given the strength of your body. I'll help you. Don't worry. Go and stand in the center." "All right." Hui Yuhao agreed and went to the center of the ice cavern. He increasingly felt that it was a good thing that the Snow Empress had regained her memory. Not only was she a strong partner, she was also like a teacher to him as she kept on helping him. The Snow Empress drifted in place, and her white dress danced in the air. She was like a fairy. As she waved her hand, her sleeves shot up, and the last 6 pillars of ice essence suddenly drifted into the air. They surrounded Hui Yuhao in 6 different directions and were separated from one another at exact distances and angles. These 6 pillars were like 6 ice sticks of life energy. They exuded dim light, and a gentle white glow emanated from the Snow Empress body. This white glow shone on the ice essences. Suddenly, all the ice essences lit up, and shone with a bright blue glow. The ultimate ice origin energy in the air started to become more and more concentrated. Hui Yuhao immediately sensed greater viscosity in the surrounding air. The extremely pure ice essence was even purer than his fluid soul power. Gentle soul power started to seep into his body in streaks. Hu Yuhao didn't need to intentionally circulate his soul power before his soul power started to circulate in the trajectory of his mysterious heaven technique. The Ice Empress tattoo on his back became clearer, and his entire body was glowing jade blue. Very soon, Hu Yuhao felt that his soul power was completely nourished. Following this, he felt that his entire body was ballooning up. It was also at this time that the fusion of manifold mysterious ice essence in his body began to slow down. With every round of circulation, Hu Yuhao's soul power would fuse more and more with the ice essence. He could sense that he wasn't fully absorbing the ice essence. However, it was being turned into spots before being stored within his soul power. If Hu Yuhao's original soul power was fluid, these ice essences that he had just fused into his body but was unable to absorb had turned into thin ice flows that remained within his fluid soul power. Under such a condition, he was able to store more and more ultimate ice origin energy. Hu Yuhao's body was becoming stronger and stronger under the nourishment of his life gold. His passageways were becoming more and more springy. Even if he wasn't able to absorb the ice essences, he could still store them. As his soul power circulated, his ballooning body slowly began to feel more and more comfortable. As his body gradually fused with the ice essences, the speed at which the ice essences surged into his body increased. This process carried on for close to 2 hours before Hu Yuhao managed to fuse all of the 6 ice essences into his body. Even though he could only temporarily absorb part of them, he could still sense the improvements to his soul power throughout this process. Given enough time, he believed that his soul power could make significant improvements. We're done. These ice essences have been compressed within your body. When you cultivate in the future, they'll slowly fuse further into your body and strengthen your cultivation. The Snow Empress woke Hu Yuhao from his cultivation state. As he opened his eyes, Hu Yuhao suddenly saw small white cyclones around his body. They exuded an icy cold aura. As he breathed, he discovered that these cyclones were coming out of his nose. It was really magical. This place, it's a pity. The Snow Empress looked around her and sighed. Hu Yuhao was curious as he asked, "What's wrong?" The Snow Empress said, "The formation of any manifold mysterious ice cavern is a gift of nature. This one is no exception. However, it's a pity that it wasn't in the extreme north. The temperature of the outside world can't sustain the development of this manifold mysterious ice cavern. Otherwise, more ice essence might form in a few years as long as we leave some behind. If I'm not wrong, this ice cavern should have been moved here as the Earth's crust changed. It shouldn't have formed here. Even if we don't take all this ice essence away, it will slowly disappear as the outside temperature changes. Without the manifold mysterious ice essence and divine ice crystals, this place will vanish completely soon." Hu Yuhao nodded and said, "This is a miracle of the Creator. I'm already very satisfied." The Snow Empress glanced at him and said, "Leave this place. In this period of time, you must place more of your attention and energy on understanding the mysteries of ultimate ice and the intrinsic nature of ice." "Yes." The Snow Empress sprang up and flew towards Hu Yuhao. In the past, Hu Yuhao didn't have any sort of feeling when that happened. After all, the Snow Lady was only a little girl then. However, she had regained her former look now. She was already very ravishing, and looked out of this world. As she flew, she was like a fairy. Even the determined Hu Yuhao couldn't help but be slightly stunned. The Snow Lady waved her hands, blocking his vision. Immediately after this, she turned into a streak of flowing light and fused into his body. Hu Yuhao didn't stay any longer. He made his way into the spring before swimming out. The icy spring outside was still cold, but it was a little different from before. It had lost some of its intrinsic nature, and wasn't able to pose any threat to Hu Yuhao. Nan Shueishui and Nan Qiuqiu were waiting very anxiously outside. Nan Shueishui had even tried diving in once, but the temperature was simply too low. She had no choice but to give up and wait outside. When Hu Yuhao reappeared, he was immediately reprimanded by Nan Qiuqiu. He could only smile as he looked back at her. "Yuhao, what's your plan?" Nan Shueishui asked Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao said, "I still have to go to one place and help eldest senior find something. At the same time, I'll need to go take a look at Big Mao and Second Mao. I want to go too, Nan Chiu immediately said. Hui Yuhao replied, Chiu, don't go. Auntie wants to move all the remaining stuff from the Earth Dragon sect over. Help her. I'll go and return quickly. It won't take too long. That place is already occupied, the Sun Moon Empire. It might be dangerous. I'm not afraid of danger, Nan Chiu immediately responded. Hui Yuhao smiled and said, I'm afraid even if you're not. If you're hurt, how can I account to Auntie? Nan Chiu snorted and said, Stop it. You just want to get away from me. Don't think I don't know that. No, I have to go. Hui Yuhao was a little helpless as he said, Chiu. She turned her head around and ignored him. Nan Shui was grinning at one side, not uttering a single sound. As an elder, she wasn't willing to intervene in the matters of young people. Furthermore, she could tell that her daughter didn't stand a chance with Hui Yuhao even though she wanted to help her. If she tried to blindly help her daughter at one side, she might even catalyze the opposite effect. It was fine just letting Nan Chiu speak for herself. Hui Yuhao replied, All right then. We'll go together. However, you must listen to me. Entering the Sun Moon Empire's territories now isn't the same as before. If we encounter enemies, you must never be impulsive. I'll listen to you. Nan Chiu's anger turned to delight, and she reacted cheerfully to his words. Hui Yuhao said, Have some rest tonight first. We'll set off tomorrow morning. Okay. Nan Chiu acknowledged readily. The three returned to the cloth shop as they silently left the original address of the Earth Dragon sect. Although the backyard of the cloth shop wasn't very large, it was still possible for them to allocate a room to Hui Yuhao while Nan Chiu slept with her mother. After he was given his accommodations, Hui Yuhao immediately entered his room and told Nan Chiu not to disturb him. He was not going to eat dinner and was prepared to retreat in his room until the next morning. He had just fused a lot of manifold mysterious ice essence into his body. The faster he absorbed the ice essence, the faster his cultivation would grow. Of course he wasn't willing to give up on this opportunity. He sat cross-legged on his bed and shut his eyes. His soul power circulated in his body as he started to cultivate. After leaving the manifold mysterious ice cavern, he managed to discover what his problem was immediately during this session of cultivation. As he had fused with a huge amount of manifold mysterious ice essence which had formed ice flows, his soul power was moving much slower as it circulated. Although this wouldn't affect him in a fight, he would still take a long time to absorb all the manifold mysterious ice essence, given the speed of his soul power circulation. Hui Yuhao didn't dare to blindly increase the speed of his soul power circulation. He was afraid that the ice flows would harm his body. He could only take it slower. As he thought, he initiated the circulation of his soul power and also divided a part of his attention to his soul core in his Eye of Destiny. Within his soul core, the compressed space was filled with immense spiritual power. A huge amount of spiritual power surged out under his command and fused into his passageways. His spiritual power fused with his ultimate ice soul power. This was the benefit of having great spiritual power. Even when he didn't unleash his spirit eyes, his spiritual power was still at the standard of a title d'Or. After his spiritual power fused with his ultimate ice soul power, he didn't increase the circulation speed of his soul power. Instead, he relied on his spiritual power to gather all the ice in his soul power. Slowly, he was changing the form of his soul power. If the ice essence was separated in his soul power, blindly increasing the circulation speed of his soul power could harm his passageways. However, if the ice essence formed a thin line under the effect of his spiritual power and was then engulfed by his ultimate ice soul power, what would happen? The problem was immediately solved. When Hui Yuhao tried to perform such a combination, the Snow Empress was in or in his spiritual sea. This wasn't something a normal seven-ringed soul master could control. Even some title d'Or couldn't do this. However, Hui Yuhao relied on his soul core and immense spiritual power to do it. It took him a full 4 hours before he completed this combination and smoothed out the flow of his soul power. With sufficient spiritual power to control it, he was afraid of changes to his soul power. In such a state, he wouldn't be affected whether he was cultivating or directly using his soul power to fight. He recirculated his soul power according to the trajectory of his mysterious heaven technique. Under the fusion and protection of his spiritual power, Hui Yuhao's soul power circulated faster and faster. Very soon, he understood why the Ice Empress was so obsessed and in awe of the manifold mysterious ice essence. In just one major circulation, Hui Yuhao could already sense an improvement in his soul power. At the very least, it was comparable to the results he normally obtained from days of cultivation. What was even more impressive was that his ultimate ice had grown stronger. This meant the temperature of his ultimate ice soul power was even lower now. It was also much purer. Even his life energy had grown stronger as a result. His passageways and bones were also strengthened under the nourishment of the manifold mysterious ice essence. It's indeed very strong. Hui Yuhao was delighted, and immediately continued to cultivate without any hesitation. His soul power had reached rank 74. After absorbing the ice essence, Hui Yuhao sensed that his soul power had reached rank 75. If he continued in this manner, his soul power would be bound to increase further and further. This opportunity that Nan Shueishui had brought to him was indeed very rare. He performed more and more major circulations of his soul power, and slowly lost track of time. His soul power was filtered and purified. Furthermore, his soul power wasn't the only thing absorbing the ice essence. His body, bones, passageways, and organs were also absorbing this treasure. The energy from the 6 pillars of manifold mysterious ice essence was slowly being absorbed into his body. His abilities were also slowly increasing. Hui Yuhao only stopped when he sensed that his soul power was already greatly nourished, and he needed some time to adapt to the changes. As he opened his eyes, Hui Yuhao let out a long breath. A white mist was released from his mouth, and the entire room was instantly covered in a layer of frost. It was a magical feeling. Hui Yuhao was very awed in his heart. His soul power circulated like mercury. It was gentle and heavy, yet it ran smoothly. With every movement he took, his soul power would surge. He was even more surprised by the fact that his soul power seemed to have gained a greater connection with the origin energy in the air. This meant that not only could he adjust his soul power in a fight, but he could also better guide the origin energy in the air for his own use. He drifted up and took a look outside. The sky was still bright outside, but he was shocked to learn how long he had spent cultivating. Surely it's not morning, is it? As he pushed his door open and walked out, Hui Yuhao immediately saw Nan Qiuqiu, who was supposed to be guarding his door, but was dozing off right now. A warm feeling surged through his heart. Without a doubt, Nan Qiuqiu was here to protect him. Qiuqiu. Hui Yuhao squatted down beside Nan Qiuqiu and called softly. Oh! Nan Qiuqiu was immediately jolted awake. She heaved a sigh of relief when she turned her head and saw that it was Hui Yuhao. She was surprised as she asked, "You're awake? You're finally awake. You said it was going to be one night, but 7 days have already passed. How ridiculous can you get?" This video will end here.